Welcome back to the Table Rush Talk Show, where we dive deep into the world of entrepreneurship, marketing, and personal growth. I'm your host, Misha Zvagantsov, and today I'm joined by Dave Sobel, host of the Business of Tech podcast and owner of MSP Radio. Dave has built an incredible career in tech services, and he's a master at content creation and helping companies leverage technology for growth. In this episode, we dive deep into the world of managed services, the future of tech, and how Dave transformed his expertise into a top 1% podcast. Let's get into it. Dave, welcome to the show.
Oh, Mason, thanks for having me. I'm super excited for this conversation.
I have a general flow that I like to do for most of my shows, and it's usually I'm having on here, business people of all different shapes and sizes that are they're like, I do cold email and here, boom, 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 boom. And so I can do a structured interview around that. And as I was digging about on what you do, really what I was able to suss out is that you are just cranking out the content. And so I guess when I say normal flow of the show, I'm going to let you educate me about what you do and what you're up to these days, because clearly you're having fun cranking out the content and let you speak
Well,
to that.
in a way, it's almost useful to know where I came from to know where I got here, right? And
Yeah.
so, I always like to sort of start. You can start your story as a young boy. I learned, but that's not where people want to start, right? So, I sort of start my career story when I graduated college. So, I graduated with a computer science degree from the College of William and Mary. And if you'd asked college Dave what he'd be doing, I'd say, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to be building products and coding and the typical product technology path." And I did that initially a little bit, but then I pivoted pretty quickly into some consulting work early in my career, and that was really rewarding, like helping people with their solve problems. I jumped to a startup, an early 2000s startup, where we did some product growth, but again, it was about solving a problem. And when that one flew into the wall and went down in beautiful, spectacular flames, right? I learned the lesson I learned from that was, oh, the bosses keep their jobs. The bosses have some kind of protection, and I'm way smarter than those idiots. I can fly a company into the wall just as well as they can. And you kind of laugh at that was my lesson. And I launched my
Hey,
first.
can I say something really quick to
Yeah.
that? I've been involved with a couple of those things too, and it turns out that the money raise is just so they can keep their jobs. Is kind of what I feel like, right? It's like,
Totally. And it's you're laughing at we had a pretty good product and it was too early to market. That was really a lot of what it was. So it's all market fit kind of stuff. And you look back and you learn a lot of the lessons of that. But younger version of me was far cockier on this stuff and said, "No, I can do it myself." And I launched my first business. And my first business was an IT services firm focused on helping small and mid-sized companies here in the DC metro area. That's what I did. And I hustled, grind out the journey that every small business owner does, acquiring clients, growing the business. And it was a 10-year run for me, helping small businesses with their technology needs. Down and dirty. I had a lot of healthcare customers. I had a lot of not-for-profit customers. At its biggest, it was about $1.4 million in revenue and about 15 staff. It's a nice services business. That was its own ride, and it's another whole podcast, right? I had the opportunity to sell it, so I sold, and I said, and it was a modest sale. Everybody always thinks that these kinds of sales are oh, you're done, you go live on a beach. And actually the way I tell it is well, I put the money in my retirement account, and I'm really looking forward to retirement, but I wasn't done, and I had to go get a job the next day in order to keep going, and so I did, and I went to work for some software companies that helped my business grow. The technologies and tools that are used by IT services companies to deliver those services. The first one, I was there about almost 2 years. We sold it to AVG. The second one, I was with 6 years. First 3 years in sort of startup mode. We sold it to a company God, I don't, nobody would ever heard of SolarWinds, which became, of course, infamous later. We sold them to, sold that business to SolarWinds. I was there another 3 years through the IPO. And I left about 2 weeks before they were hacked because it was, for me, it was that moment of like, I think I'm ready to do something else. I was ready for another change. And if you now that you've heard my career, you go, oh, okay, he spent a bunch of time helping people directly. Then he helped the customers of the software vendors of that, so help the service providers themselves. And I said, you know what I think I can do? I think I can launch something really helpful for these IT services firms that they can identify the trends and directions and news that I've been identifying in my career. And I could build a show there that's really valuable. I want to be part of their everyday to learn a little something and execute just a touch better. If I can do that, that's pretty cool, and it will really move a lot of the business. And to give you, as I turn it back over to you, I'll give you the stat that I think about all the time of this world. Everyone talks about the big tech companies and thinks about technology. You think about somebody like Microsoft, right? Microsoft, huge company, impacts all of our lives. We're all using, Windows or Microsoft 365. For every dollar of Microsoft revenue, there's $8 delivered through their partners. That's the companies that I'm talking about and the people that I try and give good advice to every single day.
Awesome. So really quick, you have a 10-year run, build a nice little modest business, you get an opportunity to sell. Um, all of us hear that and we go, "Oh my gosh, I'm done. I'm on the boat to the Bahamas." And it sounds like you got your payout that was modest, but it was like, "Well, that's just enough to let me know that I do need to keep working." Is
Right.
that kind
Yeah. And I always talk about, we all, I mean, look, I will applaud every entrepreneur for every exit period. But if we go look at it, they're not all spectacular payouts. A lot of them are like, you built an asset, it had some value, and you sold that asset. And now you have some money. Like not Scrooge McDuck giant piles of vat that you can swim around in, and you have to be smart about what you do with it. And yeah, that was me.
Yeah, and so was it what was I gonna say? Oh, was it a relief too when you sold that business? Were you like, oh my gosh, I get a payout and I'm free of the machine I created, or was
It
it a
was definitely
sad?
a
Yeah,
relief.
go ahead.
IT services is a really hard grind. It's a hard business. I love services businesses. They're the ones that you can really get your hands dirty. You can help customers. But IT services is a rough one. I mean, think about the landscape we talk about now. And I don't know how much we're going to do on cybersecurity, but everyone's constantly talking about cybersecurity. On a good day, you don't mess up in IT services. Right? Like on a good day, everything runs the way it's supposed to. Nobody thanks your network administrator for keeping the network running today. You just assume that was their job, right?
Oh my gosh.
And on a bad day, wow, that's a bad day, right? It's a really stressful business. It's you can never make a mistake. It's wonderful. Like when it runs and when you're helping customers grow and you're helping them drive new revenue and you're using technology, man, it's awesome. But wow, the risk on the other side, it's a lot. And so for me, the sale was actually the ability to get off that treadmill and take a moment and go, oh, okay, I'm not tired. I'm not scared of my phone anymore.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. It's like the unsung hero, right? You're like the unsung hero, IT services.
Oh, totally. And by the way, they became heroes in that COVID lockdown period. If you remember when that transition when everybody was working from home, wow, IT people were some of the most valuable people. Like, I don't want to be, EMTs, hospital people, like they are up there. They definitely top IT people. But for everybody who needed to keep working, that was a vital service that all of a sudden became incredibly valuable for everyone. And that's the
Hmm.
example. That's the example. The recent example I tell everyone is think about that. That's the world of IT services.
Yeah, 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 yeah. How cool too that 2000, ish, you start that business and you sort of, or not sort of, you get a jump on that growth boom that's still going on in various sorts of ways. Hearing you talk and thinking of the timeline, I'm like, oh yeah, you caught, the IT boom at a good time. But I'm thinking, man, we still are booming with cybersecurity, AI. People are still mechanizing everything, or say it
It's
however
a
you.
cool industry. I mean, like, yes, I got to do the .com rise. Like, I got to be part of that, which was great fun. I've also ridden three drops, right? There's it's not all great. There's 2002, there's 2008, there's 2020. Like, there's some drops in there too. But but the cool thing about it is that it is technology has always been fundamental. Like since that launch, since it really sort of exploded into the internet era, like it's a core piece of everybody's business. It's a cool space to be in. And by the way, like for every cool one, cloud, AI, we've got some disasters too. We've got blockchain and we've got like, anyone remember big data? And like we've got all kinds of like ones that were just didn't work, right? Like, we've got a bunch of carnage that we've left behind us too. So that's kind of the fun of like keeping an eye and say, well, what is actually something and what isn't.
Yeah, yeah. I was just thinking of pets.com, and what was the first big grocery store was going to be automated? Do you remember that
Oh,
back in the day,
there
mid
was some
2000?
of the e-delivery guys. There was that one. Like, I mean, the Williams Sonoma for a while wanted to just add .com to their corporate name. Like it's just it was such a
Was
wacky
madness.
time. What's interesting is again, that's all you go back and look at the carnage of the .coms, right? And there were a lot of really good ideas in there. They were just badly timed. Like oftentimes it's not necessarily that the idea is completely ridiculous. It's that, you know, the timing was off, the technology wasn't there. We are always too early as technologists. Like we'll always say something is about to change everything, and it happens 10 years later. It's,
Right? I know. It's incredible. So you sell your business after a great run, and you're free from it, and get a little money in the bank, which is obviously amazing and a gift. And you go back into the working world. I mean, employee
I took
world.
it. I went back. I was a W-2 for you and you entrepreneurs out there. Yes, I was an employee. It was an 8-year run on the other side, and for me, it was about learning the other side of that business. So in the IT services world, right? Like we do. We deliver advice. That's ultimately what we're doing. There's a bunch of services around that. We'll help keep your network running. We work on backups. There's tons that go into that. But fundamentally, we're just your IT guys that are like helping keep everything run. Well, there's a whole slew of software solutions and technologies behind that are product stuff, that are products that go into building that solution. And I never worked for somebody at that scale, nor something that had done that. So I really wanted to learn that side of the business. And I spent 8 years, with two different companies learning how after being a services guy, how a product-based business work, how does sales work on that, how are the motivations work that, how do we get people to implement it. My measurement was always how successful, we called them partners, like the partners that were selling IT services. If they were successful, we were successful because they sold more software. And so my measurement of success was always revenue growth for our partners. Like I could go out there and I could train them or teach them or implement them in some way and make them better. We saw more revenue. Cool, right? That's a good skill, right? Is being able to sort of say, like, I can help you. And so that's what I did for another 8 years. And that sort of gave me another set of perspective on the way this market works. It's the combination of the technology plus the advice and services that really make it sing.
Got it. Got it. And that 8 years as your W-2, if I heard you correctly, those companies may have been bought out. So did you have
Oh, I
many
I
exit
did the exit.
strategies?
Yeah, I had a couple like so the first one was a small software company. We grew it. We sold it to it was a Canadian based company actually in that one, and we sold it to AVG, the antivirus people, and that then that technology has been traded a bunch of times. I exited after the transaction on that one, and then the second one was a little European based startup. They were based in Edinburgh, Scotland. And they had offices here in the States, and I worked for them. We grew it over 3 years, and then we were consumed by SolarWinds. At that time they were or they were not, they were private at the time, and they were going through that PE cycle of combining things and growing revenue. So they combined us with another division, and then we scaled the business from sort of 10,000 customers to almost 25,000 customers, over that time, and we IPO'd, and I'd never done that. It was a learning experience. I don't know a thing about how this works, right? And so was a fun ride to go through the IPO process and do that. And I stayed a year post IPO. And then it was a sort of an element of learning of, oh, I'm not particularly good in big companies, particularly public companies. Like I'm a small, kind of mouthy entrepreneur. Uh, this is probably not a great match. Maybe it's time to go on to the next adventure. And so that was the when I transitioned out.
Cool. And then were you able to again add to the nest egg at those two key points? So exit one, exit two, where
Yep, along the
yeah.
way, it's again, it's all, you make your modest wins along the way, and then you put them to work for you over time.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to take this win and put that aside and and keep pushing. And I'll take this win and I'll put it aside and I'll keep pushing. Because over time, even modest wins over a time horizon are, that's life changing over the time horizon.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it all adds up. And then if you are smart and don't have too many ex-wives or whatever,
Your
perhaps.
choice of partner is an incredibly important decision in life. And I
I
am happily married 21 years. So it's,
good, 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 good. Hey, I meant to say too, everybody watching, listening, uh, if you're grooving on what Dave's saying and you're like, oh man, this guy knows what he's up to, been through a lot. You can go to business of business. You've got the Business of Tech podcast, and
yep.
then you've also got MSP Radio, and then Business of Tech podcast. Go to business of dot tech, business of dot tech, and you can follow along and see all the fun stuff that Dave is up to, content wise, because you are cranking out the content. You've got your podcast, you've got your radio show, you've got a blog, you've got a newsletter, and it's what do I want to say? It's high value. It's good content too. So
Well, thank you.
uh,
That had been my premise going into this. Part of the reason I thought about this was I thought about the IT services companies that I was working with, and I said, they are overworked, don't have enough time, don't have the ability to watch all of the news and trends and do the data analysis and stuff. I said, but I love doing that bit, and if I could condense it down to like 10 minutes a day, well, that's the little bit that they need, right? And it becomes a habit, right? And as marketers, we know that the best thing you can do is become somebody's habit, right? Is that if you're part of that, you're incredibly valuable. And I figured, my idea was I'm going to take really great focused content and I'm going to pair it with a high value audience. And I will say, like, this is business decision makers helping other business decisions spend lots of money on technology investments. For all you marketers, that's a really good audience to put ads into. Right? And that was my basic business ideas. Is I think I can do a really great job on the content, and I can couple it, and it can be a good business. I don't have to be CNN or CNBC. Like I don't have to be that kind of media company. I can be a small one that's agile, focused, knows who our audience is, and serve them really well.
I love it. So you've answered my question that from the beginning, or my frame at the beginning, the pre-frame of, hey, I'm the business owners I have usually are service providers or selling a product, and you're not that you don't have a product or are not providing a service, but you have created the top 1% podcast. Anybody watching, listening, you can go to Listen Notes. I love Listen Notes as a
Mhm.
tool, and you can check out where people's
My
podcasts
scores aren't
are.
too shabby on listen notes.
Yeah, your scores are not too shabby. So I was very excited to have you on here. I think it's funny too, because I sent you a pitch. I was like, hey, I want to be on your podcast. And you said, no, I'm not really doing that interview style right now. I was like, well, gosh, I'd love to have you on my show because I was checking your podcast out and
And
you're
like and
a top.
likewise, when you reached out, I was like, oh, this is cool. It's just not a fit. Like it's just not what I'm doing. And that's but actually like that's sort of a key insight that I offer is like I'm really focused. I know exactly what the show is, who its audience is, what voice I have to speak in, and you can't get distracted from delivering that on a regular basis. And that's the like sort of lesson for me is the reason it's successful is I know who my audience is really well, and I got to think every single day about delivering to them something valuable.
Yeah, I love it. And I want to talk about how you're monetizing that a little bit, perhaps in a second, though,
Sure.
because pre before I hit record, I was saying, I was wanting to talk to you about podcasting and content creation and these crazy hours we can have recording interviews. It's 7:22 Pacific Standard Time in the morning as we're recording this now, started at 7 a.m. I'd already been on another Zoom thing at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time and you said to me, yeah, it's can be crazy hours, but you are having the most fun in your life right now. And that's a very compelling, I mean, that's the big win. We can talk about revenue and all these other
Sure.
kinds of things and helping people, but to be able to have fun serving and to, I guess, be doing what you're passionate about right now. And it's interesting because you went from sales, hardcore sales, obviously sales, to now. I mean, there's sales in what we do always, but
There's always selling.
yeah, you want to riff on what I just said a little bit, or
Yeah. So, I mean, you sort of hit the nail on the head. Like, from the reason I'm having the most fun is I've actually, like, in a way, been able to combine all of my experience into something that's really valuable. I get up every single day and I get to help thousands of MSPs, managed services providers, and IT services firms do a little bit better each day. Like, that- that's pretty cool. Like, if you really focus on that as your mission, like, it is, that's pretty cool. And I spent, so if I think about the evolution, right? My business initially, my IT services business, was about helping the 40 or 50 clients we had in the DC metro area, right? And then, then I move on to the software side and I'm able to help with these managed services providers, but I would grind it out. Like, it was, a lot of it was like training and education. I say without pride, I am a million miler on United Airlines because I pounded hotel room, to go to conferences and grind it out 50 or 100 people at a time in training sessions, right? Like, and talking, I would speak all over the place. And by the way, loved it. It was great fun. But at some point you realize you're like, this is really grueling. And I'm really grinding it out. And I think a lot about the fact that, in the heyday of that, I'm flying around, I'm doing 100 people at a time. I talk to thousands in a day, every day now. My reach and ability to help is so much better. And on top of that, I haven't lost all the time of sitting in airports and traveling around. Like, I get to spend that time on research and analysis and on consuming the news. Like, I have to, like, I laugh and go, like, I am the most prolific reader of the news to help my audience, because essentially I'm curating, right? Like, I'm taking these feeds in and I'm just making decisions. I read over 500 news sources a day. Like, right, and your eyes bug out, right? And I'm using, like, I'm pulling in from over 500 different news sources every single day. And I, by the way, don't mind saying I'm using technology on the back end to make myself smart, to find deduplications, but I'm able to do it. I'm able to read the IT services news outlets from around the world. I read the one in Germany. I read the one in Poland. I read the one in Portugal. I read the one that covers Asia. I read all of them so that I can get a great perspective on all of the conversations that are happening. And I listen to all of the online conversations that are happening in the community, and I synthesize that all into 10 minutes, right? And I wouldn't have the time to do that if I was pounding the plane. So it's better reach, it's better data. It's like and it's like totally scratching my news junkie itch, right? And because if you look at it, they go, why did I start in technology? I like cool stuff. Right? Like, and I get to keep an eye on what's the cool stuff, what's not the cool stuff. And ideally then match that to, hey, I can give you some advice on which I think are valuable, how I think we can make some business decisions around this, which ones are going to become businesses, which ones are not. And I quip and I go, and I have to be right more often than I'm wrong. Right? Like
yeah,
but I'm going to be wrong sometimes. I tell all
yeah,
my listeners is like, look, I am going to be wrong because
yeah.
because I'm not making interesting, bold predictions and effing it up sometimes. I'm just taking the safe route. And so I've got to be willing to be wrong sometimes. But for my listeners, I tell them all the time, like, look, if you zig when I say zag and you make more money, call me. Tell me how you did it, because that's awesome.
Yeah. Hey, so again, everybody watching, listening, Business of Tech podcast, the Business of Tech podcast with Dave Sobel. And then you can also go, so that's business of dot tech. Of course, you're on all the platforms. So if you're on Apple, Spotify,
Yep.
anybody watching and listening, they can find you there in your show.
Yep.
MSPradio.com as well. MSP stands for Managed Service Provider. So Managed Service Provider Radio that's
Yep.
what that is. Yes.
Yeah,
And then
the idea of just basically there is that's the company that produces the Business of Tech. So like the Business of Tech website is all the news content, it's the news letters, the articles, and of course the company is mspradio.com.
Okay, cool. And in podcasting, I think most of the general public thinks that somebody starts a podcast and then we sell ads on the podcast, and that's the revenue model. So whenever I say I've got a podcast, people will say, "Oh, well, is it profitable or how much money do you make?" or things like that with a podcast. And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't sell ads." There's different revenue models with a podcast or with content
Mhm.
creation. You've got the what most people I think is like, oh, you start a podcast and you're selling ads, and you
Right.
start a podcast and you get millions of downloads, and people want to pay you for ads on your show, right?
Right.
Uh,
Which
there's
is the model that I use.
I
But you're
love it.
which is the model that I use.
Okay.
But by the way, that's not even the majority model. Like the majority model is actually most podcasters are doing it for influence to drive another portion of their business, speaking engagements, book sales, consulting services. Like that's the actual number one way. I do the ad sales route, which is good and bad all at the same time. Like I got to grind it out all the time. It's constantly be selling more ad spots. So for any of you software vendors listening, it's the number one podcast in the MSP space. All right. He's already quoted it. I've got the best listed scores in the space. Come buy ads. Right. Like, but you're exactly right to focus on like so people that are thinking about podcasting, there's a bunch of different ways to leverage the content, right? It can also be a brand exercise. You're doing it to educate your customers about your core services, right? And so there's lots of different revenue models. I happen to do the ad one. I also do some Patreon supporters. So supporters can support me directly. They get access to me. They get a special Zoom link so that they can have going on consulting. They get access to content early. Like it's that style of creator, that creator influencer model where you engage with your audience as well as engage with advertisers. That's how I make money.
I love it. And I think that's what most people think of the general listener or everybody in the world. That's what they think of when they hear about, oh, I've got a podcast or I've got a
Yep.
YouTube show or something like that.
And
Uh,
for listeners, that's not typical. Like actually, like the
it is
number one
not.
bit is not and by the way, most podcasts are not profitable. Like it is really hard work to get to that size and scale that actually like to make money. And if somebody comes to me and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about starting a podcast and I want to sell ads and that's the only thing I'm going to do," I'll go, "That's the hardest thing you could possibly do. Perhaps try something else first. Like let's like you've got to know exactly how to do it." Right? And you're kind of chuckling like the secret to my success on this is actually two parts, and I want to sort of reveal it for those that are listening on that. The first is I already talked about it, is knowing my content like in my audience and my content like intimately being really and I will say like I lean into professionalism, right? Like from day one is like good audio, great cuts, no ums and ahs. Like I edit that sucker, I write it, I edit it, I tighten it up like it's a newscast and I think about it that way. The other bit was I was an ad buyer for 8 years, right? Part of my job was buying ads and knowing where to place our digital marketing and knowing where the message need to go and knowing what the lifetime value of a customer is so that I can very eloquently speak to the buyers of my advertising of I can tell you exactly what this stuff is worth and how you're going to make money off of it and what's going to happen from that perspective so that I can sell them with the metrics that they're interested in. And it's far more than just I get a ton of downloads, right? Like it's like I can tell you average view duration for my show, consumption numbers, the demographics of who's buying, their college education, their income numbers. I've got it all broken down into a like 13-page downloadable document that you can get my media kit, as well as things like my listen score and who I compare with and what the audience is listening to. And you're chuckling as a marketer, right? Because you're like, oh yeah, that's why he's actually making money. It's,
Absolutely. And I love it and I'm fascinated. And my intuition was telling me that when I was bringing you on the show, was like, I think I got an actual legit, what we would say, podcaster who is monetizing an audience in the traditional podcasting route, which
Yep.
is not actually the traditional route,
Right.
is. And I think, I'll speak to that. I have X amount of downloads, X amount of listeners. People say, how many downloads do you have? How many subscribers do you have? Or I want to sell ad or can I sell ads on your show? And I'm like, I'm not your guy because I don't want to know that data because
Yep.
I ignorance is bliss for me. If that makes sense, like I know, and so when I hear what you're saying about, I know everything inside and out. I know the drop-offs, all this stuff that is powerful and that is amazing. And I do want to say again, I want to encourage everybody watching, listening, go to the Business of Tech podcast, listen, go to businessoftech.com and check out Dave's site and check out the articles, check the stuff out. I was reading through it. I just read the Apple one about the pro.
Vision Pro we just covered. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, you're cranking out content and it's good quality, like you said. And I mean, I did cursory, but I was like, wow. So
Well,
I,
thank
I
you.
just want to say, hey, great work in that regard. But go ahead.
Well, by the way, that's the hook too, right? Like, is you get a couple of moments for somebody. Like, again, if we're talking in marketing speak, you have a couple of moments and you don't know where somebody lands to find you. Right. So we're recording this today. The top story on the website is probably about the Apple Vision Pro, but it won't be that tomorrow and it won't be that the day after. So I don't actually always know where people are finding me. And so I have to make sure that it's all good. Like that it's all gonna hook you at some level and be interesting. And I need somebody at a quick glance who doesn't know me to go, oh yeah, that stuff's pretty good. Like I should spend more time there because I only have you have a couple of seconds, right? To really
Yeah,
get that first impression. And so you have to think about like, is the stuff you're putting out good?
yeah, it's great. I admire you, and I think what you're doing is awesome. I had a whole bunch of questions, and they kind of slipped away all of a sudden. But I'm I'm wanting to know. There's in a lot of the business endeavors we do, or the things that we do, or the things that we become passionate about. Like if I'd have known what was really involved in podcasting, would I have started? Or if somebody listening, watching is going to go, yeah, I've always wanted to start a podcast. I want to build an audience. I want to sell ads. I want to do all this stuff. A certain amount of naivete or ignorance is going to serve them because they get in deep enough and now the ball's rolling. And
Right.
it's like building your 10-year IT services business. You're like, what have I created?
Oh, and
But
what beast did I create? And that's true for so many businesses, right? Like
yeah,
most of the time, like what you don't know is the actual like the journey and the learning. Uh,
yeah.
you know,
Well, I
and
guess what I was going to say was you, from what you told me, having bought ads before or being an ad buyer, right? Or
Mhm,
you were
yeah.
no paying for ads, right? Am I saying
I
that
was
right?
buying,
Or
so you're exactly right. I was buying ads. So like
yeah,
I wanted to, I worked for a software company. We wanted to advertise our wares. We wanted to sell our widgets.
yeah,
And, we had a combination of digital marketing plus physical marketing, like trade shows, event stuff, training,
yes,
like, and I was involved with buying some of the ads. I mean, wasn't the sole, certainly wasn't the sole decision maker, but I was involved in that
yeah,
process, right? And
yeah.
making recommendations and how do we measure it and how do we get success? So yes,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah. So I guess my point is you rolled into starting your podcast or your vision of what you were going to create for service providers and how you could serve them. How did you say it was awesome? I've got an idea of my focus content that I want to make for this high value audience. I love
Yep.
that. Isn't that what you said?
That's
Which
exactly
is
what I said because that is for me the magic, right? The magic of what I'm doing, why it is a viable business,
yes,
is not just good content. Lots of people think I'll make a good podcast and they Field of Dreams and they'll all just show up and everyone will listen. I wish I wish it was that. There has to be a component of Not just that you have their attention, but what are you doing with the attention to build it into a business? Now, by the way, you can totally take people's attention and sorry, look, this is what you talk a lot about doing is taking people's attention and driving it into other business outcomes, right? Like that is a incredibly powerful, viable way of doing it. I said for me, no, I literally just want to monetize the attention, which is hard, but I happen to know that in this particular world, B2B, business to business versus business to consumer, higher value, that I have a higher spend level. In technology, it's even higher than that, right? Like I'm not selling, I'm selling really high value engagements through that. If you're thinking about the typical network, right? So you get a small business, 30 or 40 employees, running along, they're spending tens of thousands of dollars on technology, like tens of thousands of dollars on technology. And so you can influence like the difference between one firewall provider and another, like that's real money to those product people. And they need to get in with the influencers that are deciding that. That happens to be my audience. And so you think through I understand the value that my advertisers are trying to link to, and I can then provide them the metrics and the insights to say, yes, we are actually talking to the right people. Here's how you know it. Here's how you can do your portion of the measurement. And thus the whole machine works together.
Yeah, love that. And so you start your podcast, you have this vision. I've got my focus content that I want to create and love. The dream is going to be to get paid to read 500
It's the
articles a
dream.
week or a day or
Yep.
whatever it is across the world. Dare, what's the German thing? Dare, Dare info or something. I don't
Yes.
know, right? Um, Dare tech info. But you started your podcast without that layer of ignorance that other people may have. So they start it and they're like, oh my God, if I'd have known, I'd have never done this. But it sounds like you went into this whole arena going, yeah, I know the game. I know what this is going to take. I've built things before. Have a general idea of the ad industry, what people are looking for, the metrics, all this. Is that an accurate
It's
assessment?
a pretty accurate assessment. And on top of that, it's an intimate knowledge of both sides of the channel, right? And like if I am the connecting channel between the audience and the advertiser, I have good intimate knowledge both of the audience and of the advertiser because I have been the advertiser and I have been the audience. So I can combine that and then that will come together into magic. And here we are, almost 5 years later and it's like, well, it's a viable business. Like I haven't had to, I haven't had to go get another job since.
I
So
love it. Yeah, and your wife is probably, do you have kids too? College
we do
age
not have
kids?
kids, and
Oh,
I will give a little. I gotta give credit to my wife, who is also a video producer. She owns her own company doing video production. You can see how this is incredibly valuable to a podcaster, YouTuber, and we actually amusingly have a contractual relationship. I pay full rates for her services, and the reason is because I've always thought this has to be a standalone viable business. If I don't cost model it based on real execution, it's fake. And so I would need a video producer for some of what I do. I would pay market rates to do it. I just happen to have the luck of I can pay market rates to my spouse, so, so I keep the money in the house. But she needs the work as like she's running a video production company. They would have a client. She would lose out if she was doing my work over somebody else. Like you have to have viable businesses on both sides. So that was a very deliberate choice. But I don't mind saying it's really helpful to be able to get your video production help. Like, hey, my lights are a little off, or what do you think of this shot? Or like how, that's pretty useful to have.
it's a nice perk for sure.
Really is.
Um, oh my gosh, date night and just let's dial in your lighting. I mean, it doesn't get any better.
You know,
Hey,
she really swoons over nights where you're like, hell, help me out with the lights. That's
that's the romantic setup, is it?
really is.
Oh my
Listen,
gosh.
spouses
Um,
really go for that.
Hey, I know we were thinking about a nice dinner and roses and things
Right,
like that, but
exactly.
hey,
But hey, could really use help with those graphics that you won't quite render right. It's
oh my gosh, it's amazing. It's amazing people stay married, is all I can say. I don't. Hey, so you've got a newsletter as well. So I guess two questions, and I'll start with uh, uh, do you still do consulting and those sorts of things? So another thing that, podcast people start podcasts for that top of funnel opportunities. So
right.
trying to drive direct business opportunities. I have you on my show and
Yep.
I hope, oh yeah, I've started a relationship and now we'll do business together, for example. So that's
Sure.
a
Right.
reason that people are doing podcasts. But do you have any of that, or do you turn that away, or do you suss that out, or
So the answer is I do that, but I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not good at, right? And so the and it's an interesting line too, right? Because I want to build a relationship with my audience. That is like the joy of podcasting is also that you have an intimate relationship, right? I am in their ears every single day. They come to know my voice. They know some elements of what makes me laugh, like they know your personality, right? And if you think about any podcast you listen to, you do end up having this kind of personal relationship with the podcaster. They are part of your life as an audience member. And so I always want to make myself available at some level. Like an audience member emails in or asks me a question, I'm totally going to just help them out. I'm just going to help them out because that's the right thing to do, and they're my audience. And of course, I treasure my audience. I want them there. But I also know that there's a time where they may want like some one-on-one like guidance, right? And I'm quite good in that space. And I do make myself available for consulting when it's required. I always laugh and go, there's two ways of doing it. You can be a Patreon subscriber and you get a link, and you can call me up as much as you want if you're a Patreon supporter of mine. Or you can do it on demand, right? They have an on-demand consulting link on that's available. That if somebody wants to just hire me for an hour and I will tell you everything that I think, that's great. What I don't do is I don't do sort of long-term consulting engagements with somebody where like hey, I want you to work with me for a year and we're going to build a strategic plan. It's like I can do that. It's not doesn't fit what I do in terms of trying to reach lots of people with so it's kind of outside of my realm of what I'm spending my time doing. And at that point, like I have several colleagues that I will happily refer you to that do like that intimate 1 year style consulting. But there's a space for like, I just need somebody to talk to, right? Who's like really smart at this stuff. And most industry analysts are really hard to get in touch with and they're really expensive. And so I'm like, yeah, I will totally get on a call with you for an hour and I will help you. Like I will give you the insights required for you. I do that both for my listeners via Patreon and I've got it on demand.
cool? And is that a good source of revenue for you, if you don't mind me asking?
It's
Or
not a majority portion of revenue. Like, if we break it down, like 90% of my revenue is coming in through advertising. Another sort of, 7% of that is coming in through Patreon. Maybe 5% is coming in through Patreon. And then there's some YouTube advertising money. And then then there's some consulting business. I like having it. It's available for people that need it. I'm not driving a ton of bit with that. But as any good entrepreneur knows, like a dollar's a dollar. They all spend the same, right? Right. So, I value that as a source of getting feedback from the audience, but it's not like a major portion of the business.
yeah, and it's got to be nice to have that feet on the street feel too, over and above selling ads, and you get to be involved clearly in something that is you've been in your whole life, which is providing
Yeah,
that
exactly.
kind of perspective to people hands on. So
Yeah,
I
so
can
it's
see.
a nice bit, but no, it doesn't dominate revenue. But at the same time, like in a way, like it's your because all your none of your children are your favorite, right? Like you like all the revenue streams. I will say I really enjoy the opportunity to do that kind of stuff when it comes up because you do get to validate like some of in those one-on-one conversations, like to validate the am I thinking the right way? Am I not make sure I'm not too far from it? That's why I love working with my Patreons. Like it's a small community, but man, they ask good questions because they keep
Yeah.
they keep you honest in terms of like the am I thinking right? Am I have I strayed too far from this? Am I on track? You want to go bold, but you don't want to go crazy, right? And
Yeah.
there's a line there, and
Yeah.
flirting with it is fun, but you can get yourself in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. It keeps you honest.
Yep.
Hey, so boy, I've got kind of three trains of thought, and maybe I could let you pick, or you know, I'm curious. One thing is, do you run ads to yourself to drive eyeballs to what you do? Well, let's start there for a minute. Yeah.
I lean heavily into organic, right? So super active on LinkedIn. Actually, like shockingly for a late 40s tech white guy, I have pretty good view numbers on TikTok. Like I'm always a little shocked by like there's some really good view numbers over on TikTok. So I have a whole organic media strategy for promoting the show. So it's LinkedIn, Facebook. I do Instagram. I do TikTok. Those are the platforms that I have chosen to invest in. I'm on Threads for personal reasons, and I'm on Blue Sky actually because I'm intrigued by where it might go from a like a federate like the Fediverse and where social media might go in the distance. It's definitely not a lead generator, but it's more an idea of like I want to be there to experiment where I think social media might go. So it's why I'm there early. So it's heavily organic. I do some paid sometimes too. Like, I spend all my time on my social stuff as well as when I spend the knowing I have to do audience acquisition. Like part of my job is making sure that the audience continues to grow. I come on other people's podcasts, right? Because that is a great way to expose my content out to other people. So it's heavily organic, but I do, yes, do some paid. Whoop, Misha, you've gone muted.
Sorry, I muted myself.
I'm
I
sure
was
it was
going to
an
say,
amazing question, and I just didn't want to miss it.
yes. You know what? I am not as diligent about the editing either, so that might make it through post-production. Clearly, you would have that time stamped and ready to be edited out already. But my question was, the Blue Show, is that what you said? The Blue Show or the Blue Channel or what was it? That you mentioned your social media
Blue sky.
channel. Oh,
Yes.
Blue
Sure.
Sky.
Blue
What
sky.
I shows you how out of the loop I am in that regard. What is the Blue Sky?
The Blue Sky is it could be classified sort of as a Threads Twitter competitor. It's all open source, all open managed by the community. The concept there for those people that are leaning into social is the existing social systems are very closed, right? You cannot take your audience from one platform to another. That's just the lock-in. But and this was actually an interesting. Jack Dorsey split this off from Twitter way back in the day to become the Blue Sky Project, which is built around an open protocol, allowing for portability of social, so that you could move your followers, you could move your content, and social platforms could work together. Interestingly, so Blue Sky is the project. Interestingly, Threads is the new offering coming out of Meta is actually built in the open protocol, and they are now opening it up so Threads can talk to Blue Sky and Mastodon and other platforms. So it's an experiment in how do we make a universe of federated content, thus the Fediverse. And the idea being that websites could plug into it, make their content available out there. It could be connected to different people. Different people could put together their own moderation platforms and their own moderation rules. So, for example, you could participate in a rule in a view of the Fediverse that is very restricted, that doesn't have a lot of bad language but there could be other versions of it that are very open. And that's the concept. For right now, if I was advising anybody on social engagement strategy, I would not say to lean into the Fediverse, right? It's too early. But I'm also a technologist, and my job is to keep an eye on trends and know where things are going. And I have this idea of, well, that might be something in 3 to 4 years. The best way, particularly based on my business, to do it is to have some experiment running to say, I'm going to do a little bit there, understand how it works, so that if it becomes a thing, I've got some insights into it.
I love it. It sounds like too the Fediverse. This is so good. A universe of federated content. Instantly, my brain went to, because I'm 55 as we record this. And so the vision of the internet back in the day was this open thing with this exchange of communication.
Yep.
And we all know that that is a fantasy, and it's been effectively locked down, in my humble opinion. And for good or bad, it's not a complaint, it's just reality. And so I think, oh my gosh, the Fediverse and the blue sky, it's like, oh, an actual World Wide Web or an actual
Yep.
internet that's open. Yeah. Kind of what I'm.
It's interesting because it's the question is ultimately I like to qualify it less in lockdown and more in where's the money, right? The money
Mm.
drives the decisions, right? And it's clear that for a long time the money was in closed systems. Well, we've reached the end of that. You know, there's another trend we always talk about on the internet, and I don't know what you're ranked on in the way in bad language. So if you have to bleep this, we talk about the enshittification of the internet, and that all good ideas over time get better and better and better, but then they try and squeeze too much revenue in it, and there's a tipping point when you go from being good to shitty, and that is the enshittification of the process. And you can see it in the life cycle of many of these websites, right? Like we talk, Facebook's a great example, right? Used to be all about friends coming together to communicate and share photos and stuff like that. But over time, they turned the dials more and more into advertising and promotion and stuff. And it hit a tipping point where it just became shitty, right? And almost every line can be traced on this enshittification process. And you look to say, like, we've had a lot of that. And so many we're having pushback on it, right? As we as consumers are looking, going, yeah, this all kind of sucks. Like this, I don't like this. This isn't what I want. And so if too much has hit that point, it's a space for disruption. I bring that all up because in a way, like old school websites haven't actually gone away. They're just not profitable, or they're not mainstream, or they're not where the eyeballs are. They didn't go away. We all still run websites. Lots of us still, we don't call it the things we used to, right? Like we probably all still post our newsletters. Well, those are still called blogs, people. Like it's still the same idea. We've moved blogging to newsletters because we've discovered that push is a little bit better than pull. But a lot of it is all this trend of like we're sort of rebelling against the siloed of data because on top of that they made it an unpleasant experience.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great riff. Thank you for that. Oh my gosh, that was so good.
Here to
Um,
help. Here to help.
yeah, thank you. uh, so the data, the you're able to speak to your podcast data, your podcast audience, all this rich data. And I think it's interesting. What's interesting about podcasting is so much of that data is really tucked way, way, way back behind a wall where I can jump on YouTube and see how many YouTube subscribers you have, and it's easier for me to as a normal human to go, oh, that person is not profitable but viable, has an
Yeah,
audience,
right.
has engagement and interaction, things like that. Podcasting is different. It's a different thing. You've got listen notes where I can go, oh yeah, that adds some viability to what Dave's doing with with your Business of Tech podcast to let me know, but via third party source that
Right. Yeah.
yeah. um Maybe speak to that a little bit. Am I reading that right? I mean, that has been my experience that the pod.
You're 100% right. And some of it, by the way, is was built by design. When podcasting launched, it was built on a technology called RSS, really simple syndication, which is designed as a simple publishing model to get content out in an anonymous way, right? And in that is the for every advertiser, yeah, anonymous is bad if you're trying to get data. Like, but it's joyful for growing audiences, right? Because it makes the content available. It's the reason we as podcasters only have to go to one place and it can show up in every podcast platform out there is because of the open standards of it, the way that it was built, that it was super simple and it got the content out very quickly and it gets it out very efficiently across platforms. The downside of that is that it does not have the data built into it. Now, as it has become a model for engagement, we're going back and retrofitting the standard, the RSS standard, and what we're doing in terms of podcasting. They've added stuff in there so that we can do a better job of collecting that data. That's why it's getting better, right? But it's oftentimes pushed back to the podcaster, not necessarily to the external sources. And as we sort of alluded to, a lot of podcasters don't necessarily even know that data, or in your case, don't want to know that data, right? So there's this extraction process that has to happen in order for that to come out. And right now, the work is put on the podcaster. So it's why, like, from my perspective, this is really good because I can be good at, by being really good at data, I can differentiate myself from everybody else who's advertising, who's my competitor. At some point, that competitive edge will go away. So I continue to think of like, hey, I just need to be ahead. I need to have better numbers. Like if I keep pushing on good numbers neutrally, but it was kind of by design why this stuff happens. And the thing that I always, going back to thinking about the advertiser and giving you some actionable items for your listeners, the reason I think the magic sort of works is if you can be the advisor to your advertisers and say, like, I'm going to help you understand what you need to know, what data does matter versus what doesn't. So I'll give you like a quick data point. I do 7 shows a week, so I can totally juice my download numbers by just more episodes. Like, right, my download numbers will go down on a week I take a day off, right? Like, and that's not that has nothing to do with the quality of my show, the engagement of my audience. It's literally just something I can juice, right? So measuring me purely on audience by downloads, not necessarily that useful, but I can give you a stat that always is very attentive to people. So on Spotify, I have a 90% consumption rate, meaning that they're listening through, right? And your eyes just blink the way that it's supposed to. They're listening through 90% of it. Over on YouTube, where things are much more fickle, I have an average view duration of 39%. That's incredibly high for YouTube content. What that tells me is my audience is super engaged. So I can go to them and I say, like, hey, advertiser, I can tell you not about the downloads, but what you actually care, which is that they listened. That they actually listen to the content. Now I can couple that and give you actual audience data and tell you that here's the information we have about the roughly 7,000 people that listened to the audio product in the last 30 days. And now I've gotten you very specific. Oh, the audience is about 7,000 people. Oh, okay. And they're listening at a rate of 90% on Spotify. And we can extrapolate that. And even if he's having an awful day on other platforms, it's probably going to still be close to 90, right? Like you can start building out and say, oh, I can give you really interesting stuff. That's where the compelling data comes from.
Yeah, that's good. Who is your host, your uh, podcast host?
I'm over on
I
Simple. I'm on Simplecast. Uh,
Simplecast.
yeah, which Simplecast, for those that don't know, is also owned by SiriusXM. So so that's why I'm over on Simplecast.
Uh, and why? Give me some more. Give me 3 minutes on why Simplecast, why you would host on Simplecast.
So I am represented on for sales. So not only do I sell by myself, but I have representation for sale from a sales perspective, and they in particular work on the automated ads portions of it. So like I can deliver automated ads, like particularly at the pre-roll, post-roll. So like before the show starts, after the show starts, we can be involved in the automated ads bit. You've probably heard those before, listeners. Those are the ones generally not read by a host, but there's value there, right? So you can actually do that. So they represent me from that perspective. Additionally, they've got to deal with SiriusXM, and so we get a better payout on a per listen basis. They've negotiated something that's significantly higher. So thus, I'm over on Simplecast so that they can use all the ad tech on the back end to drive that bit. Again, is it a major source of revenue? It's some of the revenue. Most of it is the direct host read ads that I sell. but we like diversification and every dollar spends the same. So I am happy to also engage in that perspective to bring those systematic ads and programmatic ads.
Okay, amazing. And then I'm missing the value of Sirius XM.
They pay more.
Oh,
Their payout is higher in their ad network. I mean, really, literally, it's that is we've my representation is has negotiated a deal for me and all of the other podcasters that they represent, and we get a better payout.
amazing. Um, we're coming close on time here. Do you have any success stories or longtime advertisers that you read you read the ads? Any sort of stories you like to talk about of wins for
I
your
mean,
customers or
I've had there's so many different ones and they change all the time because oftentimes I work with smaller software vendors that are coming into the market, and I can tell you, recently I worked with a new software vendor who came in. They ran their, I can't name names because they don't want their lead numbers out there, but they ran a pilot program. And immediately, within 30 days, they've got measurable leads in their CRM based on working with me. Like 30 days later. And it's funny because we have those conversations and they're like, oh, well, we measured 150 people to the landing page. I'm like, yeah, it was 150 people you didn't have 30 days ago. Like that is incredibly measurable. And by the way, that's assuming everybody to the landing page, they had to specifically type in your URL the correct way. And for those of us in podcasts know that sometimes you'll remember the company name and not necessarily the landing page, right? And so it's like, yeah, you had 130 days. I've worked with another one where, another software vendor where they did it for them, their measurement was brand recognition, right? So they wanted to make sure they were unknown in the space. And 12 months later, they were saying, yeah, every single trade show I go to, we have people that are saying, I heard you on the Business of Tech. Like that's exactly the brand recognition I want to do. And by the way, I am my quip for anybody selling is as I say, like, yeah, the way I do it is for the cost of a booth minus a trailing zero. That's how, so that's how cost with me works is I know what booths cost. Take a zero off the end. We've got fantastic spend on my podcast. And your laugh is the exact kind of reaction of that's why it sells.
yeah. It's awesome. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice already on
Because we're having too much
this
fun.
Thursday
We're
morning.
clearly
I know.
having too much fun, burning out our voices as podcasters early in the morning. Now that's a smart strategy to do contests. Burn out your voice first thing in the morning.
Oh my gosh, this has been a ton of fun and I think that's a great place to stop. I do like to end with this though. Uh, Anything, inevitably whenever I am interviewed and we hit stop, I go, "Oh, I meant to say or I wished I said or I wanted to highlight uh this or that." Does anything come to your mind that you feel like you missed or want to say or go ahead?
We talked a lot about today we talked a lot about the podcast, the mechanics of it, the bits, but ultimately, if anyone is taking away one thing, I want it to be know your why. Simon Sinek is right. Like the if you think about everything that I said today, I could answer why really well. Like why I made the decision I did, why I'm going after who I'm doing, who I'm selling to. My why is incredibly well defined. And if you get one thing out of this conversation and you're thinking about, hey, I want to make a podcast or I'm thinking about the way I'm going to use influencing, if you know your why, you will be far more successful than other engagements. And so if you take one thing away, it's that.
Amazing, Dave. And everybody's going to need to re-listen to this episode because I heard you very clearly and eloquently speak to your why a number of times.
That's
Dave,
the
this has been,
trick.
what's that?
That's the trick. That's definitely the trick.
That's the trick. So I'm going to hit stop and we'll say goodbye offline. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Table Rush Talk Show. For resources to help you sell your stuff, go to belove.media/resources. That's belove.media/resources. And be sure to subscribe, comment, 5-star, and share. Thank you again for listening.